So welcome to Creative Spirit Gathering. This is our first Monday with our pre-recorded video. So thank you for joining me. And I hope that you will join in afterwards for our Zoom room call, which is starting at 11:30 Central Time. And just head on over to the little time zone converter on your website and figure out your local time zone if you need to do that. So today I'm going to give you a little art journal tip, a way to actually lean into the present moment, to quiet the voices, if you have them, in a way that we can actually become still, become present. So today's focus is going to be process oriented, meaning we're not looking for a beautiful final picture that we're going to hang up on the wall. This is about simply becoming present on the page. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to pick up a pen or pencil. I happen to have a Sharpie with me, so play along with me for a moment here. All I want you to do is to take your pen or pencil, set it down somewhere on the page, and you're going to make a continuous line. Don't worry about what that line looks like. Let it cross over. Maybe yours has sharp edges. Maybe it's rounded and flowy. But simply let yourself rest on the page, just letting that continuous line move and flow. When you're done, go ahead and set it down. We'll come back to that later. We're going to be using our journal page to center the mind. The idea of listening to spirit might sound easy, kind of like the first time somebody ever said, like, hey, you should try meditation. And you're like, oh yeah, sure, that's easy, right? Like you just sit and do nothing. And then about a second and a half into that, you realize that doing nothing and meditating and listening are probably some of the hardest things that we can do when the world is constantly spinning around us, when we have all of these external voices and external situations happening in our lives. And then once we step back far enough to create a still point, we get into our own inner space. We have the kids situated, our families situated somewhere else. Maybe we've even taken ourselves out to the forest, so we are completely alone. And we sit and close our eyes, ready to meditate. And then we are confronted with probably some of the loudest voices in the world, and they are all coming from within our own heads. We have within us, at least I do, a constant dialogue that's happening. And it can be so hard to tune that voice out, to tune out, the little songs that get stuck in your head, or to tune out the to-do list, to tune out the, what's for dinner, or what are my kids doing right now? Like all of those other things that keep drawing our attention, to tune them out long enough that we can actually listen to that still small voice. Listen to that voice within us. Listen to our own intuition. And again, if you have all of those thoughts going on, sometimes we just need a place to focus, to divert the attention. And think of a time when I used to actually work as an assistant in a preschool. We had 2- and 3-year-olds in our classroom. So you can imagine 15 2- and 3-year-olds running around full throttle, blah, 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 chatting, and all of the noise and sort of that chaos that it can feel like in that space. And when, as a teacher, we're wanting to get their attention for something, we would have to do something that would kind of jar them out of where they were. So sometimes it could be a song. We had a silly little cleanup song that we would do. But the moment that one of us, as a teacher, started singing the cleanup song, the other students would start catching on. And so they'd start this ripple effect of singing the cleanup song. And as they're doing that, they start picking up and cleaning up around the room. Now, when our minds are going like preschoolers in all different directions and shouting at each other and saying different thoughts in our own heads, or we're hearing external voices. That idea of coming together, right? Having some way to draw everything into a focus point can be such a powerful tool to calming that mind and bringing it into focus, so we can put on those listening ears and tune in to our own inner wisdom, to that voice of spirit within. So something like scribbling on a piece of paper for a little while can start to drop you in. That's like the first few lines of the cleanup song, bringing you into that present moment. Now, maybe you have a song that you want to play as you're doing this, something that reminds you to become still, to become present. Maybe you have a chant or an affirmation that you enjoy saying. You can use that as well. Now, once we've created space on our journal with all of these separate little lines, all we're going to do is bring in some color and start filling in the spaces in between. So we could fill in between the spaces and start to see what begins to emerge. Sometimes you'll start to see that shapes or patterns might call your attention, and you can start to color them in a way that creates something that maybe reminds you of something specific. You know, maybe there's a wing or a feather that's emerging. In the piece that I showed you earlier that I did, there were sort of these figures that started appearing for me, and I just started letting the colors come together in a way that created sort of some harmony around what was kind of coming to me intuitively. You can use paint, crayons, markers, anything to fill in your spaces and simply rest on the page. The idea of this process, again, is bringing your attention to the present moment, bringing your attention within. So as you're focused on the creation piece, as you're focused on just one little shape after another, even if it just looks like a big abstract blob of colors at the end, it is the process that we're after, because the process will hopefully take you to that still small voice, that place that you can be quiet enough to listen. And that's the point where when we come to the end of our page, we've filled everything in, we can then turn to the back side and start writing what your intuition wants to share with you, writing what that voice of wisdom within wants to share with you. Today is all about creating space to listen. Now, you might have some other activity or different way of exploring this in your journal. Perhaps you want to work with collage and mixed media today, or simply splatter some watercolor paints onto the page and watch the colors bleed into each other. Remember to always trust your heart, trust your guidance, and move through the process in a way that you're feeling called and that feels right to you. I offer this as one suggestion, one way of presencing and moving in to that point of stillness. I look forward to connecting with you in our Zoom room, which will meet at 11:30 Central Time, Monday mornings. And I invite you to bring your journal for a time of sharing and reflection with our community members. We love coming together and supporting each other in our creative spiritual journeys. The Zoom link and everything else you need for that part of the program is available on our website on the Creative Spirit Gathering page at unityartsministry.org. We're going to go ahead and take time now for our meditation. Meditation helps us to simply breathe into the present moment, so we begin to release all of our activities from the day and begin to presence the now moment. So I invite you to put down your pens, to allow yourself to become comfortable wherever you are, if that's in your chair, in your bed, or lying on your couch. Simply let the body rest. Let it come to a still point. I invite you to close your outer eyes if that feels comfortable. And take a couple of cleansing breaths here. We allow our minds to become still. And we allow our attention to drop down to our heart center. Noting a sense of peace within. Noting a feeling of lightness within. We simply rest for a moment of silence within the peace of our own being. Breathing in, breathing out, we enter the silence. And on the next breath, we begin to bring our awareness back to this moment, back to our body, back to the room. I invite you to flutter your eyes open as you move now into your journal process, allowing simple scribbles to bring you even further into the present moment, to let those thoughts drift away, that you are present here and now, and listen to that voice within that has a special message for you today. It's always there. All we have to do is listen.